This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, hi everyone, Shalom Lechem. Thanks, first of all, thank you everybody for joining the trip. It was really a very special surprise to be together with everyone in these Mekayimos HaKadoshim. First, let's start off. Yedidi, Rabbi Aryeh Leib reminded me of the really amazing hashgacha that we should be today at the Ma'aras HaMachpelah. Because even though the Torah says about Moshe Rabbeinu, V'lo yada ish es kfurasai, nobody knows where he's buried, the Yalkut Ruveni brings down that in fact Moshe and Sipora are buried at the Ma'aras HaMachpelah. And they have an underground labyrinth to where they're buried in the Shevet, in the Chelek of Shevet Gad. So if somebody asks, why did you go to the Ma'aras HaMachpelah on Zayin Adar? You say, for the yard site, Yom HaDehilula of Moshe Rabbeinu. Where else do you go? So that's actually pretty amazing. Last night, we were at the Kever of the Arizal in Sfas. The Ari was the Nitzutz of Moshe Rabbeinu. So to be at the Ari and the Ma'aras HaMachpelah on Zayin Adar, half love a fella. Okay, now we're headed toward Kever Rachel, and let's try to understand the deeper significance of Kever Rachel and the Ma'aras HaMachpelah as well. Yaakov Avinu, in his first encounter with Rachel Imenu, Yaakov Avinu sees her, Vayisa Yaakov Eseinav, Vayevk. Yaakov Avinu cried when he saw Rachel Imenu. Why did he cry when he saw Rachel? Say Chazal, he foresaw that he would not be buried with Rachel Imenu, and he cried. Now talk about getting ahead of yourself. Maybe you should have a L'chaim first, and a Vart, and a Chassan, then you're worried about the Kvura. No, the first thing he does when he sees her, he's worried about the Kvura already. The first question he asked, where are you going to be buried? Oh, in Kever Rachel? And she says, where are you going to be buried? I'm going to be buried in Ma'aras HaMachpelah. So far away from each other, he started crying. I mean, they didn't even meet the Mechutanim yet, and they're talking about the Kvura. Why is Yaakov Avinu crying when he sees Rachel Imenu and that he was not going to be buried with her? So this is a very important and fundamental and deep idea. Maseches Kedushin begins, how do we know a person could marry a woman, could be Mekadesh and Isha with Kasef? Where do you learn it out from? Kicha Misadei Ephraim. Where do we learn out you could marry a woman? From the fact that Ephraim ripped off Yaakov Avinu. That's the beginning of Masechta Kedushin, Daf Beis Amud Aleph. You know, some people, they don't get married the second half of the month because it's not a good siman for the Kedushin. Do you think it's a good siman for Masechta Kedushin to begin by talking about the most greedy person who ever lived, Ephraim Achiti? Why learn out marriage from the purchase of Ma'aras HaMachpelah? Isn't that a beautiful concept? Where does marriage come from? From being buried. So inspiring. Well, why do we learn out Kedushin from Kavura? The answer is as follows. The relationship of husband and wife, of Ish v'Isha, is reflective of the relationship of HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Klal Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Chasan, Klal Yisrael are the Kala. And therefore, if husband and wife stay together b'chayehem, so that shows God will be with us temporarily. But if husband and wife are buried next to each other, that means HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be with us la'olam va'ed. So especially the kavura of the Avos HaKadoshim. When Avraham and Sarah are buried together, that means Rebbeinu Shalom will be with Klal Yisrael forever and ever and ever. So it is a very beautiful idea that the source of Kedushin is the Ma'aras HaMachpelah, which teaches us that when Avraham Avinu bought the Ma'aras HaMachpelah to be buried next to Sarah Imenu, that means it's an eternal relationship. Relationship of husband and wife is an eternal relationship, which reflects Hashem's eternal connection to the Jewish people. Now, Yaakov Avinu had two wives. One wife he was buried next to, one wife he was not buried next to. Isn't that interesting? He had four wives. But actually, two of them were perhaps Pilagshim. He had two main wives. Rachel and Leah are two types of relationships Hashem has with Klal Yisrael. We know in the Ma'aras HaMachpelah, in the place that we went, Avraham is not buried there, Yitzchak is not buried there, Yaakov is not buried there, not Sarah, not Rivka, they're not buried there. They're buried in the underground Ma'ara, and even in the underground Ma'ara, they're not there. They're Ma'ara b'toich ma'ara. It's Hester shebetoich Hester. There are two relationships Hashem has with Klal Yisrael. Hashem has an open relationship with us when the Beis HaMikdash stood, and there were Nisim Gluyim in Yerushalayim in the Makom HaMikdash. That's the relationship of Har HaMoriah. Hashem also has a relationship with Klal Yisrael in the Galus, in Hester Panim. Even when we can't see it, and there are no Nisim. Hashem's relationship with Klal Yisrael is deep, deep down, underground, subterranean. That's the relationship of Ma'aras HaMachpelah. Hashem connects to us in two ways. Har HaMoriah, Ma'aras HaMachpelah. Har HaMoriah is Hashem's open relationship with Klal Yisrael, and Ma'aras HaMachpelah is the eternal relationship Hashem has with Klal Yisrael even in the Golus. You can't see it. You look, where is Avraham and Sarah? Can't see them. You look under the mat, you look under the cave, where are they? They're not there either. They're Ma'ara b'toich Ma'ara. Rachel is called Olam de Iglaya, the revealed world. Leah is Olam de Iskasaya, the hidden world. When Yaakov is buried next to Leah, that means that even in the Galus, Hashem is always connected to us. He's always Chevron, He's always Mechuber Etzleinu. But it's not necessarily apparent. It's in the Galus. It's Behester Panim. Rachel's buried out in a field. It's revealed. Rachel's not subterranean. She's just buried on the street. Olam de Iglaya. By the way, there are two types of Tikkun Chatzos. There's Tikkun Leah, there's Tikkun Rachel. Tikkun Leah, you say every day of the week. Tikkun Rachel is only B'mei Chol, is only B'mei Shabbos. If Yaakov Avinu would have been buried next to Rachel, the Beis HaMikdash never would have been destroyed. That would have meant that Hashem is connected to us not only in the Galus, but Hashem is connected to us revealed, openly. Har HaMoriah would never be destroyed. Yaakov Avinu was hoping to be buried not only with Leah. If he would have been buried with Rachel, there never would have been a Chorban. So when Yaakov Avinu sees Rachel for the first time, and he realizes that his relationship with her would be not eternal, it would only be ba'olam hazeh, but he would not be buried with her, he knew there would ultimately be a Chorban, and that's why Yaakov Avinu cried when he saw Rachel for the first time. But Yaakov Avinu is buried next to Leah in the Ma'aras HaMachpelah, which reflects that even in the Chorban, even Hester shebetoich Hester, afilu bahastara shebetoicha hastara, Knesset Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mechubar. That is the yisoid of the city of Chevron. Our connection to Hashem is not openly apparent. It's not readily available. It's not readily accessible. We don't see it. It's deep, deep down, under subterranean. Yaakov being buried next to Leah represents Hashem's eternal relationship with Klal Yisrael, albeit not ba'olam de Iglaya. So now we come to Kiryas Arba, Beis Lechem. So may we be zoiche that in the Makom of Rachel, the Olam de Iglaya, Rachel once again is mechuber to Yaakov Avinu, and then we'll be zoiche to the Binyan Beis HaMikdash b'mher v'yameinu amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.